Let's make fat loss fucking simple again. There is so many overcomplications now with this topic and this subject, and it's probably one of the most talked about subjects because of its overcomplications. Don't eat sugar, do the keto diet, do the carnivore diet. Creating a calorie deficit doesn't work. Let's make it as simple as we physically possibly fucking can. And I want you to come away from this video knowing the exact 3-step process that's going to allow you to shred body fat and do it successfully, and not just put all the weight back on when you've finished. And I'm not just going to talk about creating a calorie deficit, because at this point every single man and his fucking dog knows that we need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. But there's a little bit more to it than that to make it successful. But before we actually get into the juicy stuff, I want to give you a bit of background on me. So I started as a skinny kid, but I started training when I was 15 years old. You might think to yourself, well, why are you talking about burning fat and talking about these simple processes if you were skinny? It's because I let myself go a fair few times. I failed multiple diets and I never could make a diet stick or work. And I want you to bear in mind that I still never actually made a diet work even when I started PTing. And that sums up personal trainers at times. Having a qualification doesn't mean shit. If you can't apply what you know, you shouldn't coach or PT, in my opinion. That's my opinion. If you've not been through the experiences and you've not been able to adhere to it, you should not be a PT or a coach, or you should try and better yourself to make sure that you can be the role model for your clients. And I knew that I had to be, and that was 4 years ago. But multiple times from the age of probably 17 up until about 24. But I went through multiple cycles of gaining, dieting, oh, I'm getting a bit too fat, let me diet. Oh, I can diet for about 3 weeks, I do too much, and then I don't actually make any significant progress, drop enough body fat to actually put myself in a position to then gain again, and then be in a surplus and make it last to the point where I can build enough muscle tissue. So I was in an endless cycle for years. And I was unhappy. I lacked confidence. I weren't happy with my shape, and I weren't happy within myself. I weren't happy in clothes. I weren't happy with my top off. I weren't happy going on holiday, walking down a beach, or walking in the swimming pool area when I wanted to go sit on a lounge or to then potentially get in the pool. I didn't really want to take my top off, so I'd wear a vest a lot of the time. And you might be in a similar situation. But there was one pinnacle point for me that then proved a lot, and proved that I had a little bit more in the tank, and showed me another level of self-discipline. In 2023, I did my first bodybuilding prep. And that bodybuilding prep was 13 weeks long, and I was as disciplined as I could ever be, and I ever had been, and I made it stick for 13 weeks. The only issue was, after the diet, obviously with bodybuilding being over restrictive, I didn't know how to handle it, and I put on so much weight so quickly, and I think it was about 30 pounds in 2 weeks, which is pretty fucking impressive. It's not fun. Now, the second bodybuilding prep was in 2024, and I've got videos of this. You can go back on the YouTube channel and check these out, and check out the show days and stuff like that, and the whole process, the high days, the dieting points, the fat loads, things like that. I've done full videos on these, so you can check out the channel and check those videos out, and you can see how much of a skeleton I look. Right now I'm carrying a bit of chub, right? I'm carrying a bit of body fat around the cheeks, but on those preps I looked like I was half dead. The second bodybuilding prep was 21 weeks long, and that was an experience in itself, because I was disciplined for 21 weeks and not veering away from the plan for 21 weeks, doing the cardio, doing the steps, making sure that I was sticking to the plan meticulously. So you're probably thinking, where am I going with this? Does that mean I've got to be meticulous and live like a bodybuilder to make progress? No, but what I want to kind of talk about initially is going to be the first thing that most people struggle with is going to be this. It's going to be actually having the self-belief that you can make it work. And a lot of the time before I work with anyone and I coach any individual that comes into the coaching doors and comes into the program, I always try to get a grasp of what it is that they struggle with. Most of the time, it isn't even knowledge. It isn't even, oh, I just don't know what to do. Maybe they second guess themselves, but it's being able to sustain it. So there is an element of knowledge in there, but it's also this. It's the mindset that holds them back. It's the lack of self-belief, and it's the lack of actually making something work in the past that then has led them to the point where they just don't believe in themselves and don't believe in any diet that can work. So they want help, and they want to find this magic pill, this secret thing that's going to be able to get them to a position where they want to get to. A lot of the time there isn't no magic pill. There isn't some secret drug that you can use, apart from if you use Ozempic. But again, we're not going to go down that route. That's not what this video is about. That's a topic for another day, and my thoughts on that. Most people come to me because they lack that accountability, they lack the self-belief, and they don't believe they can make it work because they've never been able to make it work in the past. And when they come into my process and program, I teach them the fundamentals of dieting and how they can make it work, and how it's actually sustainable without being too overly restrictive, but also having a level of discipline there that's going to allow you to be consistent. Some people want more restriction because that's going to allow them to get the results faster. Some people want less restriction because circumstances, lifestyle, family, things like that. So we have to make it work based off of your goal, lifestyle, and circumstances. But every single diet can work. We just have to find something that is going to work for you. So like I said, this video is going to be talking about the exact 3-step process that's going to allow you to be able to get there. Because that's where I was when I was at my lowest, when I felt like shit, when I felt like I was never going to be able to make it work, I was never going to be in shape, and I always had this lack of confidence that fucking brought me down. But do you know why I became a coach? To actually show people that you're capable of more if you put your fucking mind to something. To show you that you're able to be able to put the work in, you just need a plan. And you need someone to be able to give you a kick up the arse sometimes to actually make it work. Or to just build a level of self-belief that you can actually make it fucking work, because everyone has the ability to make it work. In some way, shape or form. No matter how fast or fucking slow, you can make it work. So let's get into it. First though, we're going to talk about creating the calorie deficit, because creating the calorie deficit, I'm not just going to go, well, you need to be in a deficit to lose weight, because guess what? Everyone knows that at this point. Every Tom, Dick and Harry, another coach on the fucking internet talks about you need to be in a deficit. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit. Well, guess what? Some people don't know how to create a calorie deficit. Some people do not know what it is and what it takes to be able to create a calorie deficit. So let's simplify it. You get your body weight in pounds. You times your body weight in pounds by 10 or 12. That can be your start point in terms of calories. We need some form of tracking app. MyFitnessPal, NutriCheck, and we need to start tracking our food, okay? But the first thing I ask you to do in the first week or the first 2 weeks, track what you're currently eating, see how much food you're actually eating, weigh out your foods, and then you've got your start point, because you don't really want to veer too far away from what you're doing, otherwise you ain't going to make it work anyway. So if you're currently eating 3,500 calories a day, then guess what you're probably going to need to do? Maybe start eating 3,000 calories a day and see what happens. If you're someone that's eating 1,500 one day, 3,800 the next day, 2,200 the following day, then guess what you're probably gonna have to do? Then you're just gonna have to create a routine. So at that point, that method of body weight in pounds times by 10 or 12 is probably going to be better for you. But if you're someone who consistently eats in a surplus, consistently eats around 3,200, 3,500 calories, or whatever that is for you, then guess what you're going to have to do? You're just going to have to slowly minimize the amount of calories, potentially dropping it by 2, 3, 4, or 500 off of what you're currently eating to make it work. But creating the calorie deficit is always going to come down to the food first. Intake is going to be the most important thing. So we need a calorie goal, we need a protein goal, we need a carb goal and a fat goal. But the most important two is going to be the calories and protein. Protein for making sure that we are staying as full as we physically can whilst also retaining muscle and potentially building muscle. The calories, because calories in versus calories out. If you're in a surplus, you ain't going to be able to fucking lose weight. If you're in a deficit, well, guess what? We're onto a winner. We're going to lose weight. Your fats and carbs can vary, but your carbs should be prioritized around the training window because that's where they're going to get utilized the best. Fats is going to keep you a little bit more full. So when it comes to a higher protein, higher fat diet, maybe a lower carb, that probably is going to be the way forward. But for most people, we just need to vary the carbs and fats depending on the day and depending on what you fancy and feel like. But the most important two is going to be the calories and protein. If we're talking about performance and body composition, then the fats and the carbohydrates are going to matter. But it's what you can stick to that matters the most. The next is going to be expenditure. So how, again, do we create a calorie deficit? It's going to be energy in versus energy out. Energy in is this, that's going to be your calories, and energy out is going to be this. If our energy in is this, but our energy out is that, well, guess what? We are in a surplus. So what we then need to do is then create some sort of differentiation between the two to create a calorie deficit. So how do we do that? We either do a little bit more, which is sometimes harder to do, depending on your lifestyle, or we eat a little bit less. So something can change, or we do a bit of both, okay? Or we just a little bit more cardio, a little bit less food. And make sure we're maintaining that as be as consistent as you physically can. But again, it's going to be dependent on you and what you can stick to. Keep it nice and simple. Start by looking and assessing what it is that you do on a consistent basis. Are you doing any cardio right now? Well, we can just probably put in 10 minutes after training. Are you doing, or even pre-training if you want to. Are you even tracking your steps right now? Might want to start tracking our steps and see what we get on average. So by using something like an Oura Ring, or maybe an Apple Watch, or maybe some form of smartphone. Everyone's got a fucking smartphone, so you can use a phone as well. Apple Health, Samsung Health, things like that. They're not as accurate because you put your phone down, but if you can ideally get something that's going to allow you to track your steps, you can see your average, and then you can bump that up by 1,000 to 2,000 a day. That's then going to allow you to create a calorie deficit. So you might not even need to do cardio at first. It could just be completely relevant towards steps, but we need to do something. We need to do a little bit more and eat a little bit less. But the main issue that most people have is they do too much and then eat too little, and then they make it unbearable and they throw in the fucking towel. So we need to make sure that don't happen. So we need to find a middle ground. What you're doing right now with your food, eat a little bit less. What you're actually doing right now in terms of cardio and steps, maybe do a little bit more. Sounds so fucking simple, doesn't it? Because it is, but let's break it down. So if you're doing 5,000 steps right now per day, then you might want to start doing 7,000 per day. Make the conscious effort to do that. If you're eating 3,000 calories a day right now on average, based off of the calculations of the week, what you put into your MyFitnessPal or NutriCheck, then you might want to start eating 2,600 a day through whole, nutritious foods. That doesn't mean removing every single one of your favorite fucking foods. It just means putting yourself in a deficit through food that is going to actually keep you full, that is actually going to be enjoyable, and well, isn't just going to be full of processed bollocks that isn't actually going to keep you nice and full for as long as you'd want to be, to stop you from caving, to stop you from overeating. But that is how we create a calorie deficit. That is how we do it in simple terms. The next thing, food quality matters. Now, if we're talking about performance, we're talking about body composition, your food composition and the quality of the foods that you're eating matters. But we're not really talking about body composition in this sense. What we're talking about is going to be your foods that you eat, the nutrition that you eat, how your gut is functioning. Your gut microbiome will dictate how this works. It will dictate your mindset, it will dictate your energy levels and how you feel. Your cognitive function is all going to be relative to how and what food you're eating. So if you're eating a bunch of fucking shit, you can create a calorie deficit by maybe eating a pizza every single day, depending on how big you are. You're going to feel like arse. You're probably still going to be quite hungry and not satisfied. Whilst if you fill your day with 3 to 4 to 5 high quality nutrient dense meals, you're probably going to feel a lot fuller. You're probably going to be able to get a lot more fibre in. You're probably going to be able to get a lot more nutrients in from vegetables and fruits, and you're going to feel 10 times better. Your sleep's going to improve, your recovery is going to improve, and your whole mindset and demeanour is going to improve. So the food quality matters. And sugar doesn't make you fat. Wow, I can't believe I just said that on a YouTube video. Someone's going to absolutely rip me to shreds in the comments. Please do. Sugar does not make you fat. What does make you fat is eating too much of it. It makes me laugh. People demonize sugar. Let me just break it down for you. Sugar is highly palatable. If you have a chocolate bar, you are going to probably finish it and not be full. You're going to want to eat more. If you have a squares bar, you have one, you ain't going to be satisfied, you're probably going to want more. If you have, what's another example? And what about a pack of Haribos? You have a pack of Haribos, you ain't going to feel full from that. It might satisfy your craving, but once you finish that pack, you aren't satisfied. You want to eat more. And even if you say to yourself, I'm only going to have a couple of sweets, that couple turns into more than a couple. And then that more than a couple turns into more than a couple on top of that. By the end of the night, you've ate the old bag. Sugar isn't bad. Your ability to not control your eating with it and have the discipline to stop yourself is the problem. Overeating the calories that you are consuming is the problem. So sugar does not make you fat. It causes energy spikes and then crashes, increase in appetite, and your ability to probably stop yourself from eating is going to be pretty low. So I'll repeat that again. Sugar don't make you fat. Your inability to stop yourself from eating it and overeating and the physiological response that you're going to experience from it will make you fat and will keep you where you are. So, in my opinion, the best thing to do if you are someone that actually eats a lot of sugary, ultra-processed foods, it's probably to remove it for a period of time and then start to incorporate it down the line when you reach your goal, or incorporate it very infrequently. So, fill most of your week with nutrient-dense quality foods and then have maybe 1 or 2 days where you have a snack on the side of a meal. Make sure it's with a meal, not by itself, because then you're making it even harder to just have the thing, the one thing. And if you have it with a meal, it's going to be a little bit more filling because you've had a meal and it's like a little dessert that you can have on the side. And then you know that that's done. And then maybe some fruit with it as well. So you're getting a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of fruit. And that could be something that you do once or twice a week. It depends on whether you've got a sweet craving or whether you are someone that enjoys a little bit of sugar, which most people do. And if you are someone that enjoys a little bit of sugar, have it less frequently whilst your goal is the most important thing. If you are someone that wants to lose fat and drop body fat, sugar isn't going to be the thing that helps you do that. It might keep you a little bit sane. It might give you a bit of a dopamine kick. It might be something that you might really fucking fancy. And if you do, then have it, but also understand that it might be something that causes you to overeat and put you in a surplus, which we don't want. Not when we're trying to create a calorie deficit. So we might have to be a little bit more disciplined for a period of time and not have it at all or as much. And the final point is going to be sustainability in the diet. Look, this is going to be simple. You need to be able to sustain a diet. Now, I'm not talking about sustainability in the sense of have loads of balance, all the food you love, all the chocolate, all the sweets, the Dominoes, whatever. People talk about fucking absolute bollocks nowadays when it comes to sustainability. You need to eat all the food you love to be able to make a diet sustainable. No. If you've got a lot of fat to lose, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to create a calorie deficit. And being in a calorie deficit is not fun. You're going to be hungry. Energy levels at points down the line, if you really push it, might be a little bit lower, but that's when we can implement things like diet breaks and refeeds and things like that. That's going to give you a little bit more energy and refresh that feeling of lacking energy, lethargic. But initially you should feel great from eating more good quality fucking nutrient dense foods. Sustainability comes down to your ability to enjoy what you're doing. That's my opinion of sustainability. So if you're eating nice foods, like get a nice flavoured whey protein that you enjoy, eat more chicken, eat more beef mince, eat more steak, eat more smoked salmon, salmon fillets, jasmine rice, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, jacket potato, every fucking nutrient dense food that you can think of under the sun. Get more fruit in the mix, put more veggies in. And if you tell me you're not a fan of veggies, grow up. No, but so if you say, oh, I don't like veggies, but I just can't stop myself from eating. You're not hungry, you're just bored. And that's the truth. You're not hungry, you're just bored. If you don't want veggies and you don't look at veggies and go, that's really nice, you're not hungry, you're bored. You're not experiencing hunger that you think, you're craving food. That's different. That's where we need to try and make sure that we make ourselves as full as we physically can be to allow ourselves to be able to not fall for cravings. And drink more of this, that's going to help as well. Drink more Buxton water specifically, because this is by far the best one. But the effectiveness of a diet is going to come down to your ability to stick to it. I don't care what science says. I don't care whether someone says this is scientifically proven to be the best diet on the planet. Guess what? If you can't stick to it, it ain't going to work for you. It's like training, right? This is the best training split that you're going to do to build X amount of muscle tissue or lean muscle mass in X amount of weeks. Well, guess what? If you don't actually put the effort in, the intensity is not high enough, and you don't enjoy the exercise you're doing, you ain't actually going to be able to do shit with it. Dieting is the exact same. If you can't enjoy it and sustain what you're doing, you ain't going to fucking stick to it to the point where you ain't going to get results. So we need to find a balance of real enjoyment, but also understanding the fact that calorie deficits aren't that fun. So we need to try and make it as fun as we can by putting the foods in that we really enjoy. Now, if you want a bit of an insight into sustainability of a diet and going a bit more aggressive, you can potentially put in an aggressive diet for 6 weeks, and then every 6 weeks have a week where you just go on a diet break. So you bring the calories right back up to maintenance, or maybe in a slight surplus, and then you go back into a bit of a deficit again and go more aggressive. Or you could even do the approach that I went with, where it's something off plan once a week, something untracked once or twice a week. Now that could be a takeaway. If you have 2 takeaways, you're probably taking the piss. Or you could have something home cooked that's untracked once or twice a week. And that doesn't need to be tracked. You can have a little bit more, and that might make you more adherent across the week. So these are the kind of 2 approaches if you want to go a bit more aggressive. You can go aggressive with your calories across the week, then in the 6-week mark, maybe put in a diet break for a week, or you could potentially have 1 to 2 off-plan meals in a week. Ideally, less is more, in terms of if you do not need an off-plan, don't have an off-plan. If you do not need an untracked meal, don't have an untracked meal. But if you really fancy one, then potentially put it in, because if that's going to make you more adherent, guess what? The long-term and longevity of a diet and your ability to make it work is going to be, well, it's going to be increased, isn't it? So to summarize, we need to create the calorie deficit. The food that you eat and the quality of food that you eat matters, and you need to be able to sustain what you're doing. If you master these 3 things, you're going to be able to successfully diet and also keep the weight off. Because if you enjoy what you're doing, you enjoy the foods that you're eating, when you finish that diet, guess what's going to happen? You just continue to eat the foods that you're currently eating, just more of it. More rice, more meat potentially, more carbohydrates, even a little bit more fats, and you can throw a little bit more sugary stuff in there as well if you want. Again, everything in moderation is going to be okay. But they are the 3 step-by-step things that you need to focus on if you want to diet successfully. If you found this video useful, please do us a favor, just 1 favor, maybe two. Drop the video a like, and also subscribe to the channel for future videos covering fat loss, muscle building, training tips. Anything when it comes to physique development is going to be coming on this channel, and also my own journey as well, because I'm still in a process of, well, self-development, as we all are. So if you want to continue to follow the journey and also be educated around training, fat loss, nutrition, and muscle building, and subscribe to the channel. I don't even know how to sign off from these still when I'm like 100 videos in at this point. I'll catch you in the next video.